Hey crew, I've got the key to this 26 Chevy Corvette ZR1. And this week, we're gonna see what it's like to live with. Starting with the spacing in my driveway, which is 16 feet wide by 19.5 feet long. I've got the ZR1 parked pretty darn close to the edge, especially if you factor in the dive planes up front. That's sitting next to a 26 Range Rover that my wife is reviewing. If you want to check out her content, it's at Mobile Mama on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. She's got that one parked at a slight angle, but still very close to the edge. And with that spacing and the power folding door mirrors of both vehicles, you can easily walk between the two, and we could get a wagon, but not a double wide stroller for our kiddos. The front end of the Corvette is back from the gutter, and I do have these curb ramps here to help with clearance, but there's also equipped to this car a front end lift that I really think is essential with this ZTK Aero package, because you do not want to scrape up that carbon fiber front splitter. And at the back, because of this giant wing, you can just barely squeeze in front of the hedge on the path to my front door. When first getting in with the key fob on me, I put my hand under the sill and press up on the pad to release the door. And as I open it up, that is the first defined notch, and I know I can't go any further because of how far it sticks out before touching the Range Rover. Getting in, because of that wide sill and the carbon fiber extension, it is a bit difficult. The car is also very low. Stick my leg all the way into the footwell, sit on the sill, scoot my butt over, carefully tuck my head, and squeeze my way in with my other leg. Here we go. Closing up that door. Ooh, nice solid thud. Hey cabin crew, thanks for joining for this day in the life in the 26 Chevy Corvette ZR1. In this video, I want to see what it's like to live with the craziest mid-engine internal combustion Corvette ever. Now, as Christina and her dad take the Rover off to film it, let's fire up this ZR1. Well, that was definitely a supercar startup. Let's go hear the idle from outside. And the twin-turbo flat-plane V8 has already settled down to a reasonable idle. Yes, it's raucous on startup. It might wake your neighbors if you've got an early morning commute, but after that, no one should complain. The Rover has been replaced by my mother-in-law's Lexus RS, a bit of a downgrade. Anyway, before we head out of here, let me show you where I'd place the items I bring with me every day. Like my iPhone 17 Pro, which is gonna go on this wireless charging holder here. It keeps that secure for sure. My sunglasses and slimline wallet did go inside this smallish console. It is felt lined, so it is gonna protect those lenses. And then I couldn't fit my 32-ounce metal water bottle anywhere inside, so I did have to bring a single-use plastic bottle inside the door pocket. I could wedge my Racebox 0 to 60 timer. I've got it on the passenger seat. And then I could also fit this slimmer DJI mic set into this door pocket. But my big GoPro accessory case is sitting in the passenger footwell. It's not too in the way though. I think the storage space, apart from large water bottles, is pretty good for a supercar. Now let me throw on my seatbelt here. There we go. And now I got in this car and it immediately felt so special and so supercar that it brought to mind Lamborghinis and Ferraris, which to go into gear, you have to pull on the right paddle, but you do that in the Corvette and nothing happens. You instead need to pull on this gear selector because this car feels like it's bridging the gap between the supercar echelon and exotics and more mainstream vehicles. And then I have to release the parking brake here to then roll on forward. And I do have the front end lift set here. You can see the icon there. And I'm gonna bring up my front facing camera, but not really this view. I want this view there. That's the low angle. And that's nice and wide, so I can actually see around this RX before my eyes can to make sure I am clear. And then I'm gonna turn the wheel and attempt to make it past my neighbor's basketball hoops on my way out. And I do so easily. As I start my day in the ZR1, I am very comfortable because this is a 3LT trim, so I'm just cocooned in sumptuous leather on every surface, and we have these GT2 sport bucket seats, which are pretty aggressive in the midsection, and yet well padded enough, and they've got both heating and ventilation for them in 3 different stages. There is also, importantly for me, one of my favorite features, a heated steering wheel. With the C8 generation Corvette, Chevy was really trying to upgrade to world-class performance, style, comfort, all of those things at a still reasonable price point. With the ZR1, we're now looking at a car that is, as tested, above $200,000. So it has to be world-class in all of those areas, plus performance. And we'll get into that in a second. But you also need to feel like it's not a punishment to live with this car. And let me just tell you guys, driving this car around town is not a chore in the slightest. And I can point to a couple reasons for that. For one, at 6 feet tall with a longer torso, I still manage to have headroom above, even with my hat cam on. I do have a somewhat limited range of visibility because of the lower windshield, and I wish the steering wheel could tilt up ever so slightly more, but the telescope is very solid and the seats are very adjustable as well. So I've got a comfortable driving position for me, and then on top of that, we've got GM's magnetic ride control, which I adored in my CT5e Blackwing, but is even more impressive here because of the performance capabilities of the ZR1. The fact that it can filter out the chunk and the chop and the undulations and imperfections of the road surface before it punishes me as the driver is just astonishing. Seriously, I like driving this car casually. And in the tour drive mode, the 1,064 horsepower, the 828 pound-feet of torque is not too much to manage at all. The throttle response is very gentle. The twin-turbo system gives you the power down low, but it feeds it out in a way that I'm not scared at all to drive this car at reasonable speeds. And then the carbon ceramic brakes have this lovely feel to them. I can easily coast up to a stop gently and just rest here. Now, of course, at any point in time, if I need to dip into the performance a little bit, I can just hit the push to pass Z mode and get all that I've bargained for. But in terms of other daily driving considerations, the turn signal sound is just like every other GM vehicle. I equate it to a horse getting up to a gallop. Now for the turning radius, we already saw a bit in my driveway, but it is fantastic. Given how wide these tires are, 275 section up front, for it to turn around like that is just amazing and so useful. Now, it did say when I got in the car I was thinking about Lamborghinis and Ferraris, which is true, but in this vehicle I'm not going to find the turn signals on the wheel or the wipers on the wheel and all those different things like a Ferrari. I do have to use the turn signal stock to indicate, and the wiper adjustments are just this cheaper plastic piece right here. These things are the reminder that this car is still built by a mainstream manufacturer that has a budget to stick to. Speaking of galloping horses, there's a horse right there. Imagine that. But it's time for me to get out of this steed and get a cup of coffee here at True Brew. Because of the money we are now talking about for a Corvette like this one, I am gonna park away from people. First, let me raise up that front end because there is a deeper dip right here. There we go, for security's sake. And let's choose one of these spaces not close to anyone else. I'm gonna pull over before I pull up on the selector for reverse. That prompts a high-res camera. GM always has the highest quality camera systems with trajectory lines here. So I can scoot on back. And I also enabled the passenger side mirror tilt downwards for just another assist to have the perfect parking possible. And the parking sensors are gonna tell me to stop right here. Let's get coffee. There we are, delicious decaf coffee and a breakfast burrito have been acquired. And I do wanna talk about the exterior of the ZR1, but it's sort of in half sun, half shade, so let me move it out a little bit. And there we are, an unobstructed view of this just audacious Corvette. And this one is painted in Sebring orange tint coat, which is so very loud. And if it was a standard C8, I'd say it's too much. The ZR1, I am all about it, especially because this car has the $10,000 carbon fiber Aero package with these giant dive planes and that protruding front splitter. It's got this carbon fiber lip for the massive hood duct. At the side, we've got forged alloy 20-inch front, 21-inch rear carbon flash wheels. Within those are carbon ceramic brakes painted in orange to match the body color. And wrapping over those wheels are Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. You can get more aggressive, Cup 2 tires if you want, more carbon fiber for the side sills and around these additional ducts here and here to help cool that massive motor. And just the profile with the mid-engine layout, but now that Titanic rear wing does look special. Around back, I'm still not the biggest fan of the C8's design, and I feel like with that carbon fiber package, you should also get at least a portion of the diffuser in carbon fiber, though I will say the Z06-derived quad center exit pipes do help solve the rear view a little bit, and of course, that giant wing helping it stand out. And you know, since we are back here, and because it's well on its way to being a 94-degree day, I'm gonna remote start it. Yes. That was a good decision. Now as the cabin cools and my seat ventilates me, I can enjoy my breakfast burrito. I've got my coffee held securely in this deep cup holder, so let's begin. I do prefer liquid salsa to this pico de gallo, but I'll make do. And I've been trying to avoid bacon lately, so I went with the chicken sausage option. Cheers! Now that I am refueled, I need to know how GM would have the audacity to charge this much for a Corvette. So let's move out of the tour drive mode into the sport mode, which has a very cool animation, and just dip into the power a little bit. Okay. Not a misquote. The power output is not a mistake. Goodness me. And I do like the sound of that flat plane V8. Although I will say, with the twin turbo setup, I'm not sure it sounds quite as good as in the Z06. But the Z06 doesn't move like this. It does not accelerate with the same aggression. You're kind of just getting in there, and then it goes to warp speed. And I would like more control over that, so it's manual mode, pulling on the carbon fiber paddles. It's quick shifts from the 8-speed. And for my gauge cluster, I did switch to the track orientation. You can have it linked to the drive mode or just independently say, I want the horizontal tack because it looks cool. Taking it out to 8,000 RPM is a delight. You know, among the supercar-ish things I wish this vehicle had would be a drop-down rear window here so I could keep the glass up and therefore not blow out my eardrums, but I could get more of that V8 noise. Because this is good, but it could be better. I like the action of pulling on these carbon paddles. Goodness gracious. It adheres to the road. As you do that, the aerodynamics come into play and it just sucks you down and lets this engine do its thing. But let's pause our mid-range blast to see what this rear-drive 1,000 horsepower American supercar can do in the context of a real-world 0 to 60. I've got my race box set up here to record. I've got launch control in auto mode. You can play around with the launch RPM and the slip angle, just leaving it in auto. Here we go. Foot on the brake, pinning the throttle, holding it, releasing. It's trying. There's 60 at 3.16 seconds, or this says, more optimistically, 2.9 seconds. Low 2 seconds to 60 are possible, but not with these tires. It's It's like having an NBA athlete play with his non-dominant hand. He's still gonna do damage, but you know it's not the max potential. This car deserves tires with the compound and tread pattern to fully utilize all of this power. And obviously the ZR1X with its electrically driven front tires to help can perform even better. But let's see what this rear drive ZR1 on these tires can do on a twisty road. Gosh darn it. The responsiveness of this engine out the back end of a curve is just insane. And I'm not as much aware of a loss of traction here. Feels like the Aero is able to do its job. The adaptive dampers have firmed up considerably now, mitigating body roll. And the steering, well, I don't love it just off center. As you add a little more lock, then the front end comes into play and I can really start to feel things out. Gosh, these carbon ceramic brakes are fabulous as well. Oh, this belongs on a racetrack. It's not that this isn't fun, because it very much is. God, it's that the limits are so stinking high that any good public canyon road is not gonna be able to tap into them. Enough to help me appreciate what this car does very, very well, which is somehow being rear drive, use that traction control system, use that limited slip rear differential to get this monstrous amount of power and torque to the road to propel you through it very quickly and with the engagement that drivers are going to love. A car. It's so locked in. The business of speed is one in which this is a Fortune 5 company. This car isn't putting the world on notice. It's putting the supercar world on its heels. It's really from the level of capability at this price point. But what does Mobile Mama think of the ZR1? You like it? Yes?
I like it.
What about a lime green ZR1 right? Oh, it's hello.
Hello.
That's something you don't see every day.
Fun.
You really don't. To see another ZR1.
You gotta come say hi.
I know. I saw him in the rear view. I was like, oh, he's gonna come up right about now. Very nice. So I review cars. So this is not mine. I'm just reviewing it. But you, where did you get yours?
I just got mine before yesterday.
Very nice. I love the color.
How'd you get mine? You should drive that.
So I've been reviewing cars for 15 years. So I review all sorts.
Pretty awesome.
Oh, it's just, this car is incredible. Just wait until you hit your brake-in. Okay, here we go. Ready? That is the hardest part, when you have a car and it hasn't hit brake-in yet, and you have to wait. Back to you, babe. Sorry, I was so distracted.
That's okay.
He was excited. I was excited for
he was
him.
having a good time. You don't have to apologize.
He just gets to keep his and have to give this one back.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do we think of the interior?
I really like all the leather we got going on. I like that I have 2 vents. It's good airflow.
Proper airflow.
I like that I have my own little space here, and it doesn't feel cluttered. It doesn't feel like... I know there were all these buttons here before, right?
Yes.
And now it's just cleaned up.
The spine of controls is gone.
I prefer it like this, so you're not constantly reaching over into my space.
I was saying earlier, this is the 3LT trim. So this has got all the nice materials. It's got the leather on all the surfaces, carbon fiber here.
Yeah, the carbon fiber's nice. You have nice screens.
Yes. A new one now for 26, this one over here
right
that I
there.
get to play with. Yep.
And I like all the stitching on the door, the design. Did it look like this before?
No, this is
I
this
like
is
that.
new, and it does make it feel fancier.
Yes.
A little more appropriate when you're spending this kind of money.
How much?
$211,000.
Okay.
Even the headliner. I mean, this is all in suede, and the pillars here too.
Yeah, but the stitching is really nice. It does make it fancier for sure.
They've put a bit of effort into this interior, but the ride is so nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gosh,
It's not like other supercars where you're like...
So Ferrari does very nice ride as well, and that's
Yeah.
because they took the technology from GM for the dampening system. But everyone else, you're right, it is like just so choppy, and this is lovely. One final question then before we make our way to lunch, just up here and avoid all the construction.
Wow, what is going on?
This is new. Do you think that being in this car gives you the same sense as being in something like a Lamborghini or like a Ferrari? Is it that same kind of, wow, this is super special, this is super different?
I think it does.
Yeah?
For me. Yeah, especially with the big wing on the back.
And the orange.
The orange. I like the orange.
And the carbon fiber.
Yep. I would choose the orange.
Okay. On that note, let's get some food.
Ooh, boy. What did you get there, Mobile Mama?
Tuna melt.
Tuna melts at a burger shop.
Yeah.
Interesting decision.
I'm cutting down on my meat eating, so...
Well, you're cutting up on the fries, Miss Cajun.
Oh my God.
I got the Wyatt Earp. Got the onion rings and burger with barbecue and cheese and applewood smoked bacon. It's gonna be great.
That's a lot.
Today, I'm testing the practicality with a trip to Costco to benefit the charity Families Forward. Whew, it's another Del Scorcho day here in SoCal, so let me just cool down the cabin with remote start. Yeah, that's definitely the only reason I wanted to do that. As you can see, today's Costco run is not as big as normal, and that's because in the ZR1, you lose out on the frunk in the name of cooling. That's just gonna leave the trunk, which for a supercar is pretty big, but is it big enough? The space available isn't the only issue, because with this massive wing, it's obviously very difficult to load things in this way, so you have to go to the side to make that possible. On the bright side, every time you do have to take a trip around the block to load something else in, you get a good look at that twin-turbo 5.5-liter flat plane V8. I don't want to admit this, but I've strongly overestimated how much of this was gonna fit in here. Now I want to clarify, this is a deep trunk and there are some additional pockets where you could squeeze certain items in, but those could not be in big boxes. But for now, let's just make sure the trunk closes. And as I do so, when I get to a certain point, it'll do the rest itself, and it fits. For the rest of this stuff, I will have to use the passenger side footwell. It's so in the way, I spear myself on this every time I walk around the car. It's crazy. Yeah. I know your wingspan's big, dude. And after a quick pause for Victor to check out the ZR1, it's time to see about the final item. The toilet paper is gonna fit. Yes! Whee! Now, after returning my cart, like a responsible shopper, I can confirm that the Chevy Corvette ZR1 is Costco approved, but you better be riding solo. Now, as I go to drop these items off at Families Forward, I can refresh my memory on the passing power as I join the highway. I'm gonna hit the Z mode button, perk things up, and yeah! Yes. There is plenty to get you to the lane of your choosing. And now that I'm satisfied, I'm gonna quiet up to listen for the cabin volume. Well, on that concrete slab, there was quite a bit of noise that got into the cabin. On the smooth tarmac, not nearly as much. Little tire hum, not really any wind noise, and that twin-turbo V8 is almost silent back there. You did hear from the impact detection system. It feels like it was a little sensitive there. I was nowhere close to that Model Y, but yeah, it's pretty chill inside this cabin as long as you're not driving on concrete too much. And if you were going to commute in the ZR1, which I think you could do, then you would have some driving assistance features like cruise control. Yes, it's just standard cruise control, not adaptive, but you do have a lane keep assist system, so it's not just lane departure warning. It will actually help guide you back into the lane, though it's not really a centering assist. It's not going to be hands-free highway driving, certainly, but these features are going to help a little bit. I just wish it was adaptive cruise control. Yeah, $200,000 car, come on. For whatever length of drive, you may want to listen to some music, and this car has the upgraded Bose Performance Series sound system. We're gonna listen to that via wireless Apple CarPlay, and it is a responsive screen here as I swipe through to find what I'm looking for, get my music going, choose my song, and after finding that, I can use the physical volume knob to turn up the dial. Need a little more than 50. Let's go to maybe 65 or 70%. Bose, and I have to put that disclaimer on there because I don't have the highest esteem for Bose sound systems typically, but for a Bose, that was quite good. It had the highs and mids clear, and it had that nice punch of bass that came in. The wattage was adequate. As I turned up that dial, it was able to block out the outside noise, so audiophiles may not be perfectly satisfied, but for everyone else, it's gonna get the job done. Now, before I go refuel this car, which I desperately need to do, I figured I'd spend a few minutes with the carbon fiber roof stored in the trunk, getting a bit of that air flowing into the cabin, but not too much. Still have the windows up. Now, having the roof off doesn't really improve the visibility out of this car, which is fine normally. The hood is sloped so aggressively downward that I can see the road right in front of me. I mentioned the issue of being taller and having the windshield kind of limited in the height category. The side glass is large enough, the A-pillars are small enough. The only big issue is the blind spot from here to the back end of my shoulder. Fortunately, you do have standard blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic. But we know the real perk of topless driving is getting to hear from that flat plane V8 all the more. Yeehaw! Oh, now I really do need to get fuel. The Corvette ZR1 is EPA rated at 12 mpg in the city, 18 on the highway, and 14 combined. With this 18.5 gallon fuel tank, that would give us a fuel range of 260 miles. During my time with the car, I've averaged 10.3 miles per gallon, which is honestly better than I was expecting. Though I do wish it had a bigger fuel tank, so I'm not visiting this station as often as I need to. And at current fuel prices of $6.19 for the required 91 octane gas, it's gonna cost me 115 bucks to fill up. But there is capless fueling to save me time. Well, crew, at the beginning of this video, I pondered what it would be like to live with the most powerful internal combustion Corvette ever. And after quality time spent behind the wheel, I could totally picture a daily routine with this car. From its compliant ride to its numerous convenience features to its easy transition between hardtop and topless fun, the ZR1 is a treat. Without a frunk like other C8s, Costco runs will need to be limited, and that giant wing does get in the way. But you will be grateful for the extra cooling and extra downforce when you are tearing through a canyon road or a track. Nothing about the look of this car says cheap, and you'll feel just as special behind the wheel as you would in any other supercar. But the plastic turn signals and wiper stalks are reminders of the ZR1's more humble roots. $200,000 is a lot of money, but this is a lot of car, and in my mind, worth the aspiration. I hope you guys have enjoyed this day in the life, and I will see you again next time.